Welcome to the Accidentally Intentional channel where I have meaningful conversations that build us. I'm your host, Zoe, and I absolutely hate small talk and am committed to bringing the art of conversation back because we seem to be in an era in society where we're grasping for authenticity, but yet it seems so few and far between. So I'm bringing conversations I'm having with my friends to the table for you to listen into so that you in turn feel empowered to be able to have more life-giving conversations with people, ask deeper questions, and find that connection and authenticity that I believe we are all longing for. So if you like what you see, please subscribe. You can hit the notification bell. We drop videos every other Thursday. So every 2 weeks, we got fresh content coming your way. Not only is today's guest one of my dearest friends, but as a filmmaker in Hollywood, he's part of the Directors Guild of America. He's been featured in Variety and Hollywood Reporter, and his last 2 films have made it to theaters all across the country. It's my friend and director, Spencer Folmar, and today we're going to be talking about everything from how his filmmaking career happened to begin with, the huge vision he has, and how the global coronavirus pandemic may very well change the entertainment industry forever and how he is planning to pivot around it. So guys, he drops so many nuggets of wisdom in here. I hope you're ready. Buckle up. We are about to go. Let's hit it. We're going for this. Now it's official. All right. Oh my gosh. Okay, so for those of you who are just tuning in right now, Spencer and I are talking about how we cannot get our audio to sync, so we're just going for it, and he's purposely clapping off the beat from me just to drive me nuts. I think you would. So
I would.
So here's the thing, a little backstory on Spencer and I. We actually went to the same college, but never met in college together.
True
And
story.
a professor knew both of our mutual passions for the entertainment industry and was like, oh my gosh, you guys need to meet. And then it was instant friendship from there.
Yeah, it was. Bosom buddies for life.
So, Spencer, I don't know if I actually know the story of how you went from being just this guy that loves film to making small movies to making indie movies to suddenly you have movies in theaters. So I want to hear about that.
Oh boy. Well, it's a tragedy and a comedy. All right. So yes, I went to the same college as Zoe. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I am honored. I'm excited for you. You're an amazing person, and I think it's great that you're doing a podcast. The world needs more Zoe in their life, and I do. So thank you.
Thank you, Spencer.
Yes,
That doesn't answer the question though. Good
it
try.
doesn't. Um, yeah, well, I was fortunate that I always knew I wanted to work in cinema. I always want to be a film director. I grew up in rural, very, very rural central Pennsylvania, and there was not a lot to do growing up besides wandering the woods, hunting, or four-wheel riding. And I didn't hunt or four-wheel ride, or I wasn't really into sports at that time. So I just wandered the woods of rural Pennsylvania, and I made up stories to entertain myself, and I watched a lot of movies, and I was totally taken with movies. I mean, it was like one of my favorite things of life is watching movies, either in the theater or at our local drive-in. And I knew I always wanted to do this magical job, this enigmatic job of making movies in any way. I remember when Lord of the Rings came out, and I would dress up for the midnight showing. I would see the credits that would roll on the screen for like 30 minutes, and I'd be like, if I could just be one of those names in those rolling credits, even at the very end, right before the disclaimer, my life would be complete. And
I
I
love
just
that.
I just kept at it, and I've been at it now for 31. Well, I'm turning 31 in a couple of days, so I've been at it for a while. I made my first feature film when I was 17, so 14 years ago.
Which is nuts. Most people are busy trying to decide where they want to go to college, and you're like, no, I'm going to make a movie, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was making a lot of YouTube videos. I was doing local commercials for like State Farm and anything I could do to feed this passion. Uh, and there's a Walt Disney quote. Do you know Disney. It's they have like a theme park in Orlando.
I do.
I don't know
I
if you
have
know
heard
about
of it.
it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Briefly.
yes, and they make a lot of movies, all the animated and kids movies. And anyway, so Walt Disney, the guy that started all that, he said,
Yes.
"I don't make movies to make money. I make money to make movies." And that has always been my motto. And I would like to do both, but I have made a lot of movies, and I'm thankful for that.
I love that. And I think the coolest part is that a lot of people get concerned whenever they start making money. They think, am I going to actually lose my passion once it becomes a
Mhm.
job? But it feels like, from what I've observed for you, it's just further ignited it because now you have resources to fund what's up here.
Totally. Yes. On the other hand, too, I once tried, I worked at Microsoft for a couple years and did a lot of video production for any school that I attended. I made commercials for, like I said, State Farm. I made national ads with Microsoft. And I thought I could fulfill my passion and, my heart motivation by getting behind the camera and telling stories, even if it was in commercial form. And I realized early that that you know that imitation of art, but not actually making or telling the stories I wanted to tell, wasn't enough. It was kind of soul sucking. Like it was a bastardization of what I wanted to do.
Mm.
And so it wasn't actually doing what I wanted to do. And I just remember working at Microsoft after like 3 years, making great money, but I just hated it. And I wanted to get back into cinema. I took a 7-year break between my second and third film, and it was the best thing I ever did, is getting back into cinema.
Wow. That's great. I didn't know that. That's amazing. You worked for Microsoft.
Yeah,
What a
making money, money,
crazy little
money.
detour. Oh my gosh.
And it was
That's so funny.
awful.
So, well, comparatively, it sounds like it.
Yeah,
Yet
it
it,
was awful.
yet if you were like my brother who's a software engineer, you'd be like, I'm thriving right now.
Totally. And most,
Yeah.
I am not jealous, but very interested in people who can do something a lot more practical. Like whenever you grow up and you want to be an artist, that is asking for a world of disappointment and hard work and difficulty, struggle. It is a unique calling to be an artist, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemies at time, but it's also been the most fulfilling thing of my life, and I know I'm ruined to do anything else.
That's so profound because you are ferociously passionate about this.
Yeah.
And here's what I want to know. Do you think the pendulum is starting to shift now where maybe 10, 15 years down the road, people see on a resume, oh, I do this, and it's something entertainment related, and it's not automatically written off as, oh, so do you have any real skills?
Oh man, I hope so. We always say in Hollywood, like on sets, if Hollywood shuts down like it did this year in the pandemic, we are, screwed because our resumes don't transfer to anything. We're not even fit to be flipping burgers. We have no real world experience, no work experience. I've gotten in producing, and theatrical exhibitions, so I have some transferable skills now, mostly in financing. But I think you're right. I think in the future there is going to be more appreciation and reverence for the artist.
Mm,
It's not a valued thing in American culture, or
right.
in the but I think it's going to be more so in the future. I think that's our way forward for this country and the world,
Wow.
to put it lightly.
Yeah, no, that's that definitely makes sense. And you're right, especially considering the pandemic. I mean, it has been the biggest disruptor in every industry
Yeah,
ever. Which
it has.
that's what I want to talk about next because I know because we've talked previously and we can get people up to speed to whatever you're comfortable with sharing on how it specifically impacted
Anything.
you. Yeah, but let's first touch on how do you think this is going to change the landscape
Oh
of
man.
entertainment moving forward?
I've been saying this since the pandemic first began. I own 3 theaters and building a fourth, and work in cinema. I make movies, I produce movies, I write movies, I direct movies, I distribute movies, sell movies, and now own theaters. And so I've gotten into the entire ecosystem of it. I've gone from the
Mm,
beginning to the end on both
mhm.
sides. And I've been saying this from the beginning of the pandemic, and even just tonight, I got an email from NATO, which is the National Association of Theater Owners, that the situation, especially in America, for Hollywood as we know it in the theatrical exhibition is very grim. It's very dire. I said at the beginning the estimates from NATO, and I was saying myself as a small theater chain owner that a quarter of theaters would go out of business. We have 5,500 screens in America, or 5,500 theaters, and I would say a quarter of those would close by the end of the pandemic. But the pandemic has stretched on much longer, and even just this past weekend, Regal Theaters announced that they're closing all their 7,700 screens again. So sadly, I'll be amazed if even a third of theaters survive after the pandemic is over. And that's going to have tremendous effects on the studio system, Hollywood, large budget films, independent films, everyone. It's going to have such an incredible effect. And unfortunately, I think cinema is going to go somewhat in the dark ages for a couple more years. I mean, it's been dying. It's been the golden age of television right now with streaming and everything else. But I think cinema is going to hurt more before it gets better. But I think there'll be a rebirth in the near future. But Hollywood is going to decentralize, which is good.
Okay. What does that do to you? Because you have a huge vision, and it wasn't limited to directing and making movies. But you almost have positioned yourself to be a mogul of sorts for anything related to film. So how are you mentally pivoting first with this? Like, what are you thinking about right now on how to move forward?
It's tough. So this year has been the most difficult year of my life, financially, work-wise, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And, the ashes are still burning. I don't exactly know where the future is leading for me personally or for the industry. But what I'm starting to learn is to let go of things that aren't working and to pivot quicker, to let go of things that are dying, to stop trying to resurrect things that are no longer working in today's modern world, and to embrace the future. And I've honestly, I've been walking with the Lord now for 10 years this Easter, but I've honestly learned almost anew how to have faith that God is controlling the future, and that the future has always been unknown, but I've tried to control it so much. And this year I've lost all control of everything. And so I've just learned the value of faith in a daily walk, and just today has enough trouble for itself. I'll worry about tomorrow.
Wow. That definitely is a hard lesson to learn. And, you said something that I want to pick up on, because you said you got to let things die. But that's one of the hardest things ever. So here's my question. How have you learned when it's time to let something die? What's been a key metric for you?
I'm still learning that. I think, and there's been so many examples this year, small and large. I think it's kind of following where people are, what people are talking about and where people are going. There's some things that I want to hold on to because I know that they have a societal good. Like I think a theater in a town, small or large, and people, strangers being in a theater, is art therapy. It's good for community. It's good for society. It's good for diversity. There's so much good that comes out of people going into a theater and being changed by a story and giving attention to a single source for 2 hours. That doesn't happen anywhere else in society. It doesn't happen in church, politics, nothing. And you also watch a movie with strangers, people that look and believe differently than you, and that doesn't happen anywhere else. And we're going to temporarily lose that, or it's going to shift, it's going to change. But I think because we're going to become more isolated, I think that experience will become more valued in the future. So I am starting to, there's some things, like even there's this silly, which you've been a part of, Vlogust. In August we would do video blogs, and whenever a couple of college friends of mine and I started this activity, this communal activity 4 or 5 years ago. It was like the best thing ever when we did it 4 or 5 years ago. And I've been trying to recreate and, bottle that lightning. But this year it was completely dead. It was just me posting just to do it because I was committed to doing it and seeing it through. And it's one of those things that I just had to let go. It's like I I'm so I think nostalgia is a real killer of creativity. It's a killer of entrepreneurship. And there are some things from the past that we can learn. And I'm big on history. I'm big on societal goods. But at some point, you have to create something new. And that's what I've started to learn, is that you got to do something new. You got to let go of things that worked in the past because they're not going to you can't recreate a past success.
That's
just
amazing.
like with the theaters.
Yeah. There were so many tweetable moments just in what you just said right there. I love that. And you're talking about the vlog, the little blog thing you did on Facebook, and being committed to seeing it through, but you're committed to seeing everything through. And
to a fault.
I mean, especially right now, yeah. This is your excuse to be like, I'm done. I gave it my all. It still hasn't. This has crippled me. I want to know what actually is your vision and why do you on this?
Yeah, and my vision, I would say, is still sustained with wanting to shape culture. That's why I got into cinema. Whenever I converted to Christianity, I realized that this medium of cinema can be used for great good and have impact on other people and like lost children like I was as a kid. And so I still so believe in the power of storytelling, but I think how my vision has changed is that I'm more dedicated to telling good stories and allowing the future to be in God's hands, allowing him, as he always has had, but embracing the fact that he's in charge of the results. And I'm just going to be as good of a steward as I can right now, today.
And that's it. Stewardship.
Yeah.
And because that word is so easily something that people only put with, oh, am I a good steward of my money? No.
Yeah.
That's everything. Are you a good steward of the position you hold, the relationships you have, the job, everything? So I love that you said that. That's a huge huge thing. Yes.
Time. You and I were in college not that long ago. I'm old. You're young still, but you're going to be old like me one day. And
that's right.
What are we doing with our time? What are the results? Like, am I pouring into people? Are lives being changed? Is the gospel being spread? I want to see more tangible results and be the hands and feet of the church more. And I'm trying to find new ways to do that this year.
I love that.
Because we don't have that much time. We never had much time. The pandemic has shown us that you could die at any second, and even if we live to 90 or 100, we could still waste the rest of the years that we have. And so what do we do? The stewardship of time, I think, is the thing that keeps me up the most.
For sure. Wow. So here's where I want to go with this next, is because you're in the entertainment industry, which is obviously dog eat dog. Mm-hmm. So have you ever suffered from imposter syndrome and just thinking they're going to figure it out? They're going to know I'm not actually what they think I am. Like, totally. How have you wrestled with that? And what advice would you have for me?
Such a good question. Imposter syndrome, I think, is one of the worst syndromes in Hollywood. I think, and a lot of people will, I don't know, unfortunately, fortunately, or just ignorantly, they'll cast on you ideas that they have of you that is not from the Lord. It's not from you. And so whether it's the weight of responsibility or expectation to do something a certain way from coworkers, from employees, from parents, from teachers, from pastors, they're the only Zoe that will ever exist in all of humanity forevermore is you. What God has made you to do and made in your preferences, just like starting this podcast, it's only you. And so if you're not faithful to that unique way and desires and passions and the still small voice telling you to do something that you ignore forever, that is withholding your gift to the world. And so you're stepping out and you're doing that. And that's what you have to do. Is the imposter syndrome will always be there. I have crippling times of self-doubt and insecurity and depression. And I just have to get out of bed, even if I can't for days, and continue to risk everything, risk my reputation, risk my status, risk what people think about me, risk what I think about myself, and put one foot in front of the other.
Wow.
And do something. You have to, like, what I tell kids all the time whenever I talk to classes is, like, don't wait, just create. There's a more explicit way I've said that too, but the onus is there. Like, if you're not making something, if you're not doing something, if you're not recording this podcast and trying something, what the hell are you doing? Especially for artists, like, we have to keep creating. And I've learned that, and I'm learning that more and more.
Yeah. This is something I've been challenged with even this week, and thinking through how paranoid we've all become with what we create. And I don't even know if it's more so, but it's the opportunity for everyone to see it, which is making it more magnified. And I just had this realization even today, just thinking about how insecure am I that I have to actually wait for the applause from others on what I'm creating to give it life and give it merit. Like, I'm literally saying, here, you can be the beholder of my joy.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's not okay. And like, even doing this podcast, like, I'm nervous to do this. I don't know what it's going to be. And I have to be okay with the fact that if one person downloads this and that one person gives it a 1-star review and says, this is garbage, this is crap, you don't know how to talk to people, am I able to say, you know what? I still loved it and I'm still happy with what I created.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's being an artist, and that's just being an authentic human, whether you're whatever the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
Being faithful to your calling is really fearful, but you're right. We cannot give our joy away to anyone. Protect your heart at all cost. The only opinion that matters is God's.
I love it.
And the applause fades. It's worthless.
Yeah.
It's nice. Like, I love it when people come up, like, after a screening or something, they're like, oh, I liked your movie, or I hated your movie, whatever. But
sure,
I'm mostly just looking for, whether they hate it or like it, why. I just want to know what this creation I've made, why are you interacting with it, and what do you, even if you hate it, I just want to know why, and what is it that you're believing or experiencing, or why are you reacting in that way, good or bad.
And I love that you said that right there, because I feel like as a society right now, we aren't even questioning why we like certain things, hate certain things. We aren't actually digging deep. Why are we saying certain phrases? And this is something I'm so passionate about right now, and I'm not going to go into another half-hour dissertation on this, but in this podcast, I am determined to fight for the why in whatever everyone's doing. And that's why hearing your vision is so important, because it seems so intangible to so many people, right? Because people say, oh, it's about who you know to get into Hollywood, which you can speak to that if you think that's the case or not. But people are just waiting for doors to fly open instead of working to create the tracks to move towards the door.
Absolutely. And also, there's just so much, whenever you're second guessing your calling or what your title is, right? Like, whenever you're waiting for someone else to give you a name, that is just, you're just asking to be enslaved to other people's opinions. I mean, one of the best words of advice I ever got when I moved to Hollywood was, it was at a cafe, a coffee shop in Burbank, and some guy was telling me about, how I should build my career, because I was kind of starting over. I just stopped this 7-year break from making features. I was committed to doing whatever it took to make a film and get back in the film industry, the creative film industry. And some guy was giving me terrible advice. I didn't realize it, but there was another guy in the cafe, and he interrupted the conversation, and he said, that guy's giving you terrible advice. Here's my card. Email me. If you want a job, let me know. And I don't know. I can't remember this guy's name. He actually gave me a card of another producer. So it wasn't even this guy. I never actually met this guy, but he is probably, he's like an angel. But in one of the emails, he asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to direct film. But I also said in that email, but I can also edit, I can shoot, I can write, I can, get coffee. He said, no, that's not what you do. That's not who you are. You are a director. And I was like, yeah, but I've only made 2 feature films. He's like, it doesn't matter. You are a director. So every time you go to someone, tell them, whether you're getting them coffee or not, what do you do? What do you want to do? I am a director and I want to direct films, period. There's no like waiting for you to give me a name or a title. I am going to tell you my title and walk forward in every room.
Wow.
And that
And
was
you were trying
amazing advice.
and you were trying to self-sabotage. You're like, I
Yep.
want to direct, but
Yeah.
first, here's what I do. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Oh my gosh. I love that.
Yeah.
Now, so this is hysterical that this literally feels like it was an angelic moment where you were saved because you didn't know better from the first person you were hearing terrible advice from. Oh my gosh. So let's dig into that. What is one thing you wish you knew earlier when it came to moving to LA and just digging into it?
Oh my gosh, there's so much I wish I could tell young Spencer. Um, I like your tattoo says, to be fearless. I love your
Hey.
tattoo. Yeah. And I'm learning that like this year again. Like obviously it looks like I've been bold and stepping out in faith, but even now, as I'm turning 31, I want to be fearless and to live in freedom. And that's not a great, I mean, maybe it's not directly applicable to Hollywood, but for young Spencer, it would have been very applicable, is to be fearless, especially a man. Like, no one knows what the hell they're doing, period, in life. Though there's many classes, there's master's degrees you can get, bachelor degrees you can get, shadow people, get an Oscar. Still, everyone at the end of the day is like, what the hell am I doing? There's people who talk confidently, and you should share honestly, like I'm trying to do right now, my experience and what I've learned so far. But at the end of the day, everyone is making it up as they go.
Yep.
So, young Spencer, don't be so concerned about what people think about you. Be fearless. Don't give your joy away. Don't give your name away. Walk in faith daily.
Oh my gosh, that's the best. Now, speaking to what I had mentioned earlier, do you actually think, because there's probably people listening to this who have been like, oh my gosh, I love this story. I'm hyped up because all
Yeah,
I need is that angel to come up to me in a coffee shop and
sure.
give me that card. Do you think it's about who you know?
Mm.
And if not, how can someone find inroads of sorts?
Hollywood is a really tough industry. I taught a class at our alma mater over winter intersession, and it was pretty much like, for lack of a better term, how to break into Hollywood. It was the modern film industry. That was the name of the class. And it was a history of the film industry and then analyzing the times, which was 2019. I think analyzing the times and keeping up to date on what's happening, like the closure of Regals this last week, stuff like that is vital. Like, you have to know what's going on. Um, Networking is extremely important, but a book that I read, I don't know if my dad told me to read it. Probably he read a lot of like self-help books, but I think a book that is still timeless, and I read it almost every year and have my employees read, is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Have you read that?
I just finished it last week. I'm obsessed.
It's amazing, but it's also just like common decency and Christian principles, like genuine appreciation of people. If you do
Yes.
that, like if you actually love people, you will go far in any career because people are desperate for love. And you have to be genuine. You can't do it just to get a job. You can't do it just to, book a stupid star for some movie. You have to do it because you actually care about this person.
Yeah.
And you have to care about those people, whoever they are, whether it's a person getting you coffee, your fellow worker getting coffee, or the number one billing on the call sheet. Every person, you, at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, you have to treat them like people and love them well. If you do that, everything else solves itself. Even if you're never successful, if you do that and you build your family and you find your family, your other body members of Christ, you'll be fine. You'll be good. It doesn't. I Getting connected into the body of Christ. I don't know how hard you're hitting faith in your podcast, but when I moved to Hollywood, I was at a really bad time in my faith, and I didn't want to go to church. I just suffered a lot of loss and was starting over, and I went to church mostly because I was lonely. in a very isolating city, which is Hollywood. And what is incredible about finding community of any sort is that it was finding co-laborers in this thing called life. It was just friends, and it was a network now of friends. And I poured into the ministries in Hollywood Prayer Network, the Greenhouse, anything Act One, anything I could get involved with, I tried to get involved with to give my information, my skills, my talents, my time, and then to participate in these events, whether it was prayer walks or Bible studies. Those are where all my best lifelong brothers and sisters in Christ and friends and coworkers and people who hired me and I hire have come from. And it's because we love each other.
Wow. Now, I mean, that's a way to end it right there. I mean,
Boom.
Seth Godin, who's the marketing guru, he always used this term that says the most successful people in the world all have one thing in common, and it's radical empathy. And that's it.
Ooh.
You just hit it right there.
That's so good. And I learn it every day. I mean, I know my friends that I made just because I wanted to get something from them. And I, by the grace of God, and by their own grace, I'm sure they smelled that from a mile away, but they still had empathy for me in my upcoming in my career. And these people, thank God, I've had like a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh chance to actually love them and just appreciate them as friends, and some people I won't even work with because, especially like in a business financial way, because we're such close friends. Like if it starts to go south, I'm like, hey, our relationship is more important than any effing film that we make. So if this isn't going to work out in a business relationship, let's pause this. Let's dismantle this. And even if the movie doesn't get made, I care about you more as a person in our relationship and our souls being united than this stupid movie.
Wow, Spencer, that takes such incredible self-awareness to say, and what a precedent you've set with that tone. I mean, even with that attitude right there, you are changing culture in Hollywood because you're actually putting people's souls before your pockets. So I think that's just amazing. And I'm just so like excited for you because I know you said at the beginning 2020 has been one of the worst years of your life, but I think this is just a perfect setup for at the end of your strength. That's where God's gonna kick in,
Yeah.
And he continues to do that for
He
you. I
does.
mean, you lost all these theaters, but you have this brilliant movie idea, which I'm not going to disclose to people. They're gonna need to follow you and follow it. But stuff in the works. And so all the doors are not shut. And though it may be the attic door that you feel like you're crawling through right now, who knows how big that attic is when you actually get in there,
Amen.
So I'm excited.
And
I'm
sometimes
excited
the
for
right
that.
doors close. That's what I've had to learn too.
Hey, now, do you want to say anything else about that?
Yeah. I mean, just like letting dead things be dead, not trying to resurrect things that God has said is in the past. Just looking forward, not going back to Egypt, not wishing I was somewhere else. But a quote I put on my door in my apartment that I read every day when I left and when I entered was that there was a time in your life where you wished you would be exactly where you are today. And so don't let go of today. This is the only bloody October 6th I have ever in 2020. And though it doesn't look at all how I would want it to look because of what's happened this year, this is all I have is today. And so where I am, what has been closed, what is burned down and can never be resurrected, that happened for a reason. And so I got to have faith about not only my future, but also everything that happened in the past happened the way it was supposed to. And that's how I sleep at night. That's the peace, that's the faith I have to have just to get by and to continue to create in the future.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I have one tattoo that says fearless and the other one says rise again. And regardless of what
Beautiful.
your stance on faith is, you have to do that. You have to get up again because we're counting on you and you have something to offer. And we need to see it. We need to see you see it through. You know what I'm saying? Oh,
that's so good.
I'm just feeling some type of way right now. So, Spencer, I'm going to ask you one final question, and then we're going to turn the mic off on this conversation, which thank you for having this conversation with me today, because I think it's so important for people to hear from different areas of life how we can all wrestle well together. So, my last question for you is going to take a positive tone, of course, and the question is, part A, what is your biggest dream? And part B, and one small step you can take to move the needle in that direction.
My biggest dream of now, today, 2020, would have been different probably if you had asked me a year ago, for sure. But honestly, as cheesy as this sounds, as cliche Christian, my biggest dream is to stand on Judgment Day before the Lord and him to say, well done, good and faithful servant. I just want to bring goodness to this world, because there's so many people desperate for it. So many people have they can't even understand or comprehend light or love or goodness. And so I want to bring that to people in any way, in whatever way that looks like, whether it's making movies or whether it's, just talking to the person on the street. Honestly, that's today and looking forward. I've never cared about money unhealthily, but all I have is today, and all that matters is people, and I need to understand that more. And so that's my hope and my prayer and my dream, is that I bring just an ounce of goodness to this world before I'm done.
Well, I have nothing left to say. That was everything right there. And obviously, you know how Steven Spielberg wears his director's hat? Your director's hat is putting on this mindset of, who can I bless and love today? Oh my gosh. I love it.
Yeah.
Well,
Zoe, I love you, and I care
love
about
you.
you. And
Thank
you for so much for having me on your podcast. I truly am
you're
honored.
so welcome. Let's go to Disney next week, huh?
Heck yeah. Let's go to the safari that you're living in right now, but in the animal kingdom.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Cheers to that. All right, Spence, you're awesome, and we'll talk soon. I told you it was gonna be awesome. Seriously, how much wisdom did he just drop in this conversation? I keep thinking of the one phrase where he says, everyone really is making it up as they go. And, you know, at the bottom of his website, he has that other phrase that he kept referencing, and he said, don't wait, just create. And so, guys, I hope you feel actually free by hearing both of those things, that everyone is just trying their best, and that's really all that matters. And speaking of his website, if you want to follow Spencer and see where his latest projects take him, the website is spencerfolmar.com, or you could follow him on Instagram at spencerfolmar. And hey, I want to know what the biggest takeaway for you was in this episode, so feel free to DM me or comment below. If you comment below, I'm of course going to respond. If you DM me, I'm of course going to respond at Zoe Asher on Instagram, or of course right here below. Guys, again, if you loved what you saw, please feel free to subscribe and share this episode with someone who you think might benefit from it. Well, so that's all I got today. I did mention that I was going to Disney. Spencer actually has moved from LA to Florida for the time being while the dust settles in LA during this pandemic and crazy time. So I'm gonna be able to see him in person while we visit the mouse. So hey guys, I love you. Can't wait to see you 2 weeks from now right here. Let's be accidentally intentional together.